Hello, in this class, we are going to learn how to paint a winter scene with acrylics. And for this project, actually, we're going to use acrylic paint. Make sure you have a pencil, an eraser. I'm going to use two brushes, a small and a large one. So this is number 13 and this is number 3. Make sure you have a cup of water, paper towel to wipe the paper, or the brush if it's needed, and let's start. So first we're going to start by sketching it. And this winter scene or this winter landscape, I like to call it the red barn. So we're going to start from our left-hand side of the format. So we're going to use portrait format. I'm going to start with a little triangle first. And that's going to be the roof of our barn. Let's go up here. So it doesn't really matter actually how many lines you do, because these are going to be covered with paint. So it's not important if you see too many lines or if you think that you are not quite happy with those, it's okay. I usually like to scribble a lot, or I like to make too many lines, but that really doesn't matter because it's going to be covered with paint. Now, when you do the portions or when you do these lines, make sure that these lines are both parallel with each other. Let's go down here. Okay, and also when we do this line, make sure these are in the same height. And the same thing with this one here. So if you put a line across, make sure they're same lines. So usually I like to add a lot of lines in my drawing because they're kind of helpy. They kind of guide me when I do the design, when I do the drawing. I'm going to start from the middle here. We're going to do a long window. And then we're going to do two short ones here beside. So that's it. We're not going to touch it too much for now. We're going to add more details later on. Let's go down here. We're going to do the door. Let's split this in half. Okay, and then right on the side, we're going to do a couple more windows. And then here, there's the big piles of snow. At the end, we're going to do 4 lines, and these lines are going to help us to do the fence. Let's make them a little bit straight. Okay, so that's it for sketching. I'm not going to touch it too much because we're going to come back and we're going to put color. When I start with colors, I like to usually start with warm colors and then I move on to the cold ones. So I'm going to use the large brush here. And we're going to start with red. Now, when we do the red, I'm going to mix this a little bit with black. Not too much, just a little bit. So it might look like dark red or brown. Make sure you have more red than black, because black is very strong, it's very powerful, and you don't want to overpower that color. So let's start from the edge. You can go straight. So what we're doing here, we are kind of outlining with the brush. So it's the same thing like we're drawing with the pencil. I'm simply outlining or drawing with the brush in this case. And then for the spaces, for the big spaces here, I'm just simply going to fill them up. Now, when I do fill all these spaces, I like to use big brush strokes rather than using small, tiny brush strokes. For the reason that when you paint, it kind of helps you to put those layers in a much more even paint. Because if you would have to use like small brush strokes, it's very much going to look like Impressionism style. And for this type of painting, I'm not going to go to that type of technique. So it's just a regular, smooth, nice flow of paint here for this kind of painting. Okay, so we're done with that. Let's go down here. So again, I'm going to continue with the same color. So red and black. And then again, I'd like to outline first. So this way I know where I'm going. And then I fill the spaces inside. And with this layer, you really don't need to worry too much because all you're doing with this layer, you're just simply filling up. Nothing special at this point. Now we're going to separate the two sides of the building a little bit. So because this is the front part of the building and this is going to be the side. So you kind of have to decide which side you want to be darker or lighter. So for example, in this case, we have this mixed with black. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this other side a little bit lighter than the one at the front. So let's mix this with just a little bit of white, not too much because I don't want to go to pink, but I do want to have this a little bit lighter. And then in the corner here, so make sure you don't cover that. You need to know when these walls separate. So make sure you leave like an extra line. I don't know if you can see, but there is an extra line right here at the edge. And we'll come back again to that. I'm going to add some white to kind of separate those two colors together. Let's make them all the same here, both of this the same. So the same height. And then right here at the edge, I'm going to add a little bit of white because that's where the light is. So it's mostly on this side of the building. And then by doing this, actually, you are kind of separating the two sides from each other. So I'm not covering that red completely, so you're still able to see that there is some red underneath. Okay, we're going to move on to the roof, and then we're going to go down. So let's let this dry a little bit, and then we'll come back. So let's clean the brush because I have it with red paint right now. And then we're going to change colors. So make sure your brush is not red. You can keep the same brush, or you can use another one, whatever you prefer. I usually don't like to change too many brushes or to make too many brushes dirty, so I kind of stick with the same ones. So moving on to the roof. Now for the roof, I'm going to mix 3 colors. I'm going to mix white, blue, and a little bit of black. So when you mix these colors together, you are going to see that you're going to be able to see all these colors. You're going to see all those 3. Make sure don't over mix them, because if you over mix them, you're going to have one color. What we're aiming for is that we want to be able to see all these 3 colors. So don't blend them too much. I'm going to blend them, but I still want to see the lines of paint. Okay, let's check this out. Okay, so I think it's pretty good. Let's fill all of this. So at this point, it looks like light blue or light gray, but it has that blue tone. Let's make it all the same. I think it's much easier that way. If you make it all in one color. Let's make a line here for the roof. And outline this one as well. And we're just simply going to fill all this space with the same color. And then right here at the top here where the roof is, I'm going to go one more time, and I'm going to mix a little bit more black and blue. So we want this to be a bit darker. Let's go over one more time. And then I'm going to go from top to bottom. And we're going to add some brush strokes like this. So top to bottom. Make sure it's darker, and then goes lighter down below. So let's pretend this is the part of the roof where the snow is, and we're going to put some snow later on. So this is only our second layer of paint. So now that we have our brush with gray color, let's mix it with white a little bit more here. And we're going to go down and do the snow. So when we do the snow, try to keep this kind of separated a little bit. Now let's do the lines first. And then we're going to add more white in between. So once I make this section, I'm coming back there with only white paint. And at this point, when we do the white paint, I'm not actually working with smooth brushes. So I am working with lots of texture. So adding white, and then once you add white, you should be able to see that texture that looks like snow. And that's what we're looking for. So make sure you move your brush. And this time we're working with small brush strokes, which was different from the red paint that we used before. Now let's fill all of this. Now you don't need to dip your brush in paint, because already our brush has some paint in there, has gray. So all we need is just dip the brush in white color, in white paint. That's all. We're going to do the same thing here for the roof. So let's go back up. And we're going to add this white paint all around. And this is going to imitate our snow. Make sure you move your hand a little bit, and move your brush. So simply to create the texture of the snow. And then as we go up, Let's create some brush strokes here, some lines. That gives us the illusion that the snow is falling down or it's sliding from the roof. And I'm blending, so I'm going up to the dark gray color, and I'm blending these colors together. And at this point, I'm using my brush sideways. So this way it makes those brush strokes, those lines of paint. And that's what we're looking for. So if you're not quite happy, if you feel that your snow is too dark at this point, you can always go back and then put another layer with paint, but make sure don't make it all the same. So go back and then just add a little bit more white on top. And it should look actually brighter or like a lighter color. When you put colors on top of each other, you should be able to see those layers. So I'm just going back one more time. So you can do this, you can repeat this over a few times. So I'll be repeating this for about 3 times. Whatever you feel comfortable with, you can come back and then just add that texture or that layer again. And if you feel that your snow is dark as well, you can do that with snow here at the bottom. So just add another extra layer on top with white, but make sure you move your hand when you do the brush strokes for the snow, so they don't repeat the roof. Okay, and after this, we're going to go down at the bottom and we're going to do the fence. So the fence is like darker gray. So let's create a little bit darker gray color. So it's kind of like this one, but we're going to put some red. So let's mix those colors. So we have gray, the same color that we used before, gray. And I'm going to add red to this. It's gray, red color. And a little bit more black. So I want to have a gray color, but I want to have this gray like in a reddish tone. And which is going to be a little bit different from the roof, because with the roof, for the roof, we mixed blue, but for the fence, I'm mixing the color red, which is a warmer tone. So let's go down here and we're going to do a few lines. Now you should be able to tell the difference between those grays. So cold gray, warm gray, which is mixed with red. And we're going to do a few of this. So let's make 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to do some small ones as well. So 3. Let's do some short ones in between here. Now, when you do these posts of the fence, make sure you don't make them all perfect, because when you look at them, actually, they're not all straight and perfect. Let's go this maybe. And then we'll do a couple more. 1, 2, let's add 1 more, 3 here. Okay. And then we're going to let this dry a little bit, and then we'll come back with white. We're going to imitate the snow on top of this. So our next step is going to be with white. So I'm switching brushes. I'm using the thin brush this time. So let's start with white. And then we're going to go right here on the side. So you might not be able to see it, but once we put some color inside, you will be able to see that white paint. And that will make a difference, actually. Let's do white first. So what we're doing is just simply putting some clean lines with white paint to close the windows. And then we'll come back, we'll put black in the middle. So for now, you might not be able to see that white paint too much, but once we put the black paint, you'll see it. Now, why did I not put black paint first? The reason why it's because, again, I like to work with light colors first and then move on to the dark ones. That's why I'm starting with white paint first here. But whatever you feel comfortable, if you feel comfortable that you want to start with black, you can also do that. That's my kind of preference. Let's outline all this. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing for the door. So black, I'm sorry, white paint all the way around. Make sure your paint is dry, because if it's not dry, you are going to see the color underneath. So for example, right now I'm seeing pink because my paint is not dry yet. But it's okay, I'll come back and then just add another extra layer on top of this with white, simply to make it a bit sharper. Okay, and then on the sides here, we're going to do the X, the door, so both axes. And again, if it's doesn't matter that it's not clean white at this point, because we'll come back and then we'll add another extra layer. Let's do the other windows here. Both sides. Okay, so now that I have my brush with white paint, I'm going to add a little bit more snow. So our fence is probably dry. So let's go on top of the fence and add some snow here. And we're also going to add a little bit of snow in between. So when you paint the snow here, make sure you do some kind of dripping, because we're going to kind of imitate the snowflakes or how the snow falls. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Now let's fill this with white. All the way through. And also in between as well. Okay. Right. And then we'll go back. So make sure you clean your brush. Make sure you don't have your brush with white paint. And we're going to grab some black this time. Let's grab some black here. We'll start from the middle. Now, I know if your paint is still wet, you probably will mix it up and might turn to gray. That's okay. Nothing to worry about. You can always go back and add another extra layer in there. Okay, so let's fill all of this inside with black color. So this part's going to be all black. Finish those up. So after we have finished the windows here, we're going to add a little bit of details with black. So thin paint, let's go up at the top. Let's outline this. And we're going to do a few outlining. So make sure you're using a thin brush and your paint is thin for outlining. because it makes your life much easier. Let's make a small tiny tree here. So we're going to design this with black. And you can go as far as you want with this tree, doesn't really matter. You can go as high as you want. So we're just simply doing some branches. Both sides. Let's make this a little bit thicker at the bottom, actually. Let's go up. Okay, now with black, I'm going to outline a few more parts of my painting. So let's go up at the top here. And when you do the outlining with black, it kind of emphasizes the colors together. It just puts them a little bit better together, I would say. Let's outline the door here. And I'm going to do the same thing with the fence. So I'm going to do the fence black as well. Let's go. So I'm going to keep the black tone in one side. And if you find that your paint is mixing up with white, again, it's all right, nothing to worry. That's kind of like snow, and I think it looks very interesting if that happens. So it's perfectly fine. Let's go with black here. All right, so our outlining should be good. Okay, now we're going to go inside, and we are going to add some details inside the door. Now for the inside the door, I know the paint probably might not be dry yet. So just leave it dry a little bit, let it dry, and then come back when it's not too wet. So we're going to use red this time. Let's go on the inside here. We're going to fill these parts with red. Now, another easy option might be is if you do all this red, and then you go on top of this and paint the white ones. So I think that might be a bit easier for you. So if you feel that this is very difficult, because you kind of have to keep the shape there in place. So what I found out that actually it's much easier if you just fill all of this with one color. And it's okay, don't be scared. Just fill this all. And then we'll add the extra white lines on top when it's dry. So actually, this might be a bit easier. Let's do all of this. Make sure you clean your brush. It's not with black paint. And then we'll come back. We'll do the white outlining there. So meanwhile, I'm letting this part here to dry. I'm going to work with white. Let's go back to our windows. Hopefully our black is dry at this point. So now it's the time to do any fixing. So if it wasn't that straight or if it wasn't perfect, now it's the time for you to fix it. Let's add a line in the middle. And we'll do the same thing with the small one here. And the same thing with the windows on the sides. Okay, so my tree is dry, so I'm going to add a little bit of white on the side. It's a little bit of snowy. And let's add a bit more snow here. Okay. You can also use like a different texture, like dubbing, for example, like this. So just do a little bit of dubbing, touching with the brush, and it will change the technique. I'm going to outline this with white here. And we're going to outline this part of the building right here. Now, you could not go too perfect here because it's with snow. You can always just blend this together. And then I'm going to do the door here. Careful, because the paint probably is still wet. I know my paint is still wet. It could turn to pink at this point. And then let's go on the sides. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side here. Make sure you clean your brush time after time, so this way your paint is not messy and dirty. Go over a few times here. Because I did not have the same thickness in all of them, so I want to kind of make them the same. Okay, and then once we do that part, I'm going to go on the inside, and I'm going to outline this with white. Let's do all of this around. And just simply adding a little bit of outlining with white. And you can do this for this part of the door as well. So if you feel that it wasn't too sharp or too clean, you can always go back with white on top and then just put some clean white. So that's it for this painting, guys. If you feel that you want to have more details, you can always go back and add more details, but make sure the painting is a bit dry, because if the paint is too if the paint is too wet, it's a little bit difficult to hold the paint or the colors on top of each other. And if you want to add more details, you can add some clouds in there if you feel like it. If you like it the way it is, you can just simply leave it. But if you'd like to add more details, you can add maybe a couple of clouds in there. I wouldn't add too much to it because I don't want to make it too complicated. But if you feel it, you guys can always add your own details in there. Well, I wouldn't color the whole thing. Simply just add a little bit color here and there, but not too much, because we don't want to overpower this, because we already have color here, and we do have a lot of color here and a lot of texture. So we kind of want to keep the background not too busy, I would say. So just keep it as simple as possible when it comes to the background. So if you want to put a little bit of color, just simply blend it with white so you don't see that too much. It's not too strong. And just simply wash it off with white. So if you want some colors, you can still have some, but not too much, because you don't want to compete with the painting, with the barn. So very gentle, very soft colors here I'm putting. And again, you can just simply leave it the way it was. If you are happy with that color that you had before, like plain. So it has more white than color here on top. And I'm just simply blending all of this together to make it nice, soft color. And that's about it, guys. Feel free to add as many details as you want, as much texture as you want. But I think I'll keep it simple, not too many details for this painting. I think it looks beautiful the way it is. So that's it for me, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye-bye.